My name is Lena Whitaker. I'm 38, and I just sold a car that everyone, especially the woman who swore it was ruining my life, insisted would never run. I found her 3 years ago in the shadow of a collapsed hayloft, the kind of barn that slumps like it's tired of keeping secrets. The seller was a son sorting out his late father's estate, sunburned and practical, a man who didn't speak about cars as if they had souls. He only said, "It's a '69 Dodge Charger RT, been sitting." Numbers? I asked. We brushed aside mouse nests and dust, and I read the VIN and block stampings with a reverence I usually reserve for gravestones. Numbers matching 440 Magnum. Factory Hemi orange. A configuration you don't stumble onto twice. Rust had curled the panels like burnt paper. The engine was seized. The interior? A rodent buffet. I didn't flinch. I counted out $8,500 in cash I'd been hoarding 5 years at a time, tip jar slow and stubborn. He signed the title. I signed for the ache in my shoulders that wouldn't leave for months. Adrian, my boyfriend, didn't say much that day. He knew enough to let me have my ceremony. But his ex, Monica, did not believe in sacred moments. She didn't believe in quiet either. In our circle, she was the echo you couldn't silence. Not because we invited her, because she invited herself to everything. $8,000 for that, she said the first time she saw the Charger. You could buy a nice used Honda that turns on when you ask it to. I smiled and kept working. I moved the car to Rick's shop where I rented a bay for $200 a month. Adrian brought coffee on Saturdays. Monica brought commentary. "Another weekend at the shrine," she said, sweeping her eyes over the rusted shell like she was above grief and grit. "How much did you waste this week? Do you bathe in motor oil now?" She called the Charger my rust altar. I called it my project. The difference was that my word required patience and hers required an audience. Year 1 was unglamorous. Disassembly, cataloging, rust surgery, one scab at a time. $4,000 in panels, tools, and the kind of chemicals that smell like regret. I learned how deep metal fatigue hides, how hope lives in the angle of a grinder. Monica wasn't keeping a diary. She was keeping a running total. "That's $12,000 and it still doesn't run," she announced over takeout once, counting storage like she worked for a federal auditor. Actually, 12.5. Adrian tried to change the subject. I let her finish. When you're raising a car from the dead, you get familiar with voices that don't believe in resurrection. Year 2 was the heart, the engine. We bored and honed. New pistons, cam, heads, machining so precise, it felt like surgery performed by saints and sinners. Another $6,000 gone, and Monica found a new octave. $18,000 and you could have bought something that, I don't know, moves, she said, sliding her eyes to Adrian. But sure, keep pretending this is an investment. It'll never be done. I kept paying my half of everything. We kept doing date nights. I never asked for her faith, only for space. Somehow that was the one thing she couldn't afford. The turning point arrived 2.5 years in, on a Saturday when the air felt like the inside of a bell about to ring. Rick stood by with a fire extinguisher, because that's what good friends do, and Adrian braced a camera with shaking hands. We primed oil, checked lines, held our breath. I turned the key. At first, a cough, a refusal. Then the kind of sound that makes your bones remember your grandparents. The 440 roared awake, raw and ragged and defiant, like it was offended anyone had ever doubted it. Something hot surged into my throat. I didn't wipe my eyes because if you can't cry when life returns, what are you saving the tears for? I posted the startup clip. The car community devoured it. 50,000 views in a week. Comments from people who speak Mopar like a second language. DMs from collectors sniffing at the edges. The first real offer thudded into my inbox. $35,000 as is. Adrian whistled. Monica stared at my phone like it was a mirror she didn't like. "Take it," she said. "Double what you put in. You're welcome." "It's not about the money," I said. "Not yet." She went silent for 3 days, which felt like a national holiday. Then she came back swinging. I entered a local show on a dare. Primer gray. Half the interior missing. Running and driving, though, like a newly sober fighter. We won Best Work in Progress, a $10 trophy made of pride and plastic. The crowd didn't care about the finish. They cared about the fight. When Monica saw that crowd, her tune retuned from contempt to accounting. "Maybe you should get it appraised," she said, all sugar. Insurance purposes. I already did. Of course you did, she muttered. And 65,000 as it sits. Her jaw clicked. You should sell. Right now. No, I said. Next month is paint and body. With what money? Her laugh was ice. Your stupid car fund? Yes, I said, and watched something brittle crack behind her eyes. What I didn't know then, Monica had been telling people that my savings were our savings, not mine and Adrian's, hers and Adrian's, in the someday house she'd built in her head with a down payment I'd never offered. She rehearsed we like a part she'd already landed. I was just the understudy paying for props. The fight that night tasted like metal. You're selfish, she said. You are choosing a dead car over a living future. What future? I asked softly. The one where I fund your dreams while you trash mine? Adrian tried to play referee. She called him weak. She didn't leave that night. Not completely. She left just enough behind to make a return feel inevitable. Clothes on a chair, jewelry in a dish, a hairbrush planted like a flag. 3 weeks later, the Charger came home reborn, rotisserie straight, panels laser true, paint so perfect it looked wet beneath the shop lights, original hemi-orange, unapologetic as a sunrise you can't ignore. I took pictures that looked like memories I hadn't earned yet. I posted them. The internet did what the internet does. When it sees a ghost resurrected with receipts, it swarmed, and that's when Barrett Jackson called. Properly documented restorations like yours, the rep said, are bringing serious money. I sent them everything. Every receipt, every photo, every part number, the whole Dusty Barn story. The next day, they called back. Based on comps and quality, $150,000 to $180,000. I set the phone down and stared at the car, at the way the orange seemed to hum. Adrian hugged me. Rick grinned like a proud uncle. Across the room, Monica's smile was the kind a person wears when she's about to cash a check she didn't write. I consigned the Charger. 6 weeks until the auction. That was the night Monica appeared at Rick's with a man in a tailored suit and a briefcase that creaked like it expected to be important. She'd dressed in expensive certainty. Fresh highlights, lipstick the color of threat. Lena, she said smoothly, we need to talk. Do we? I asked. This is my cousin Trevor. He's a lawyer. Of course he was. Of course she'd bring a lawyer to a garage. Trevor clicked the latches on his case and slid out papers like knives. My client wishes to discuss the equitable distribution of assets accumulated during your relationship. My relationship? I asked, blinking. With whom? With Adrian, Monica said, like I'd missed rehearsal. We were building a life together while you tinkered. Rick coughed into his sleeve to hide a laugh. Adrian took a step forward, but I lifted a hand. I wanted to hear the shape of her audacity in full. Trevor cleared his throat. Ms. Whitaker, Michigan recognizes certain claims akin to palimony when long-term partners contribute to one another's asset growth, household support, emotional labor, opportunity costs. Opportunity costs, Monica echoed, triumphant. While you were in this shop every weekend, I was waiting. For what? I asked. For me to sell so you could send an invoice? She didn't flinch. That car is worth nearly $200,000 because you had the freedom to sink time and money without consequences. I carried the consequences. I get half. Half of what I bought before you, built without you, and documented to the bolt, I said. Show me a single receipt with your name on it. Her smile thinned. I gave support. You called it a rust alter yesterday, I said, on Instagram. Trevor shuffled. Monica steadied herself. She inhaled, then played the card that freezes rooms. I'm pregnant, she said. 6 weeks. The ratcheting sound you heard was the world trying to understand how far a lie will travel to get attention. Adrian's jaw worked. Then he exhaled. Monica, he said quietly, I had a vasectomy 5 years ago. Silence. Rick dropped a wrench. Trevor slowly closed his briefcase the way a person shuts a casket they didn't mean to open. You're lying, Monica hissed. Adrian pointed to his truck. Paperwork's in the glove box. I had follow-up testing last year. I can hand it to you, or we can have the court subpoena the clinic. Your call. Trevor looked at Monica like she'd slapped him. Monica's mask cracked. Lena, she said, trying for a softer register that never belonged to her. We were together, Adrian and I, for 3 years. That has to count for something. It does, I said. It counts as 3 years where you ridiculed the thing that kept me sane. It counts as 3 years of no. She tried to pivot. She promised to go public. She threatened reputations. She talked about community property and common law like saying the words would make them true. Security lights flicked on outside the bay as the sun dropped. The charger soaked up the last of the evening like it knew what was coming. 6 weeks, I thought. 6 weeks until the hammer. And Monica had just declared war. After Monica's performance at the shop, I slept with a folder on the nightstand like it was a fire extinguisher. Receipts, date-stamped photos, storage invoices, the appraisal, the paint and body contract, insurance correspondence. Every page a brick in a wall I hadn't wanted to build but suddenly needed. Adrian kissed my hair and said, "You shouldn't have to live like you're prepping for a trial." "Maybe not," I said. "But I'm also not going to let someone narrate my life for me." Outside, the charger glowed under the bay lights, hemi-orange turning soft and strange near midnight, the color of a warning flare that also happened to be beautiful. Rick had joked it was beginning to look like a museum piece. I smiled then, because neither of us knew how close he was to the truth. The next week was quiet, and quiet felt like a lie. Monica didn't text. Trevor didn't email. No calls, no subpoenas, no ambushes in heels. That much silence from a person who feeds on drama is not mercy. It's the inhale before a scream. She started small. My insurance agent left a voicemail. "We got a call from Mrs. Whitaker asking about your policy on the '69 Dodge. Wanted to make changes. We flagged it because you're not married." I pictured Monica practicing my last name into a bathroom mirror, trying it on like a dress she couldn't afford. I called the agent back, answered security questions, locked everything with a passphrase no one could guess. Then I wrote a note to myself in Sharpie. Assume the next move is bigger. I focused on what I could control, documentation. I had already assembled the restoration book for Barrett Jackson. Barn find photos with calendar pages in frame, spreadsheets of parts and labor, side-by-sides of metal surgery no one but other lunatics would love. Rick teased me that my tabs had tabs. The Barrett Jackson coordinator called to confirm the slot. Saturday night, prime time. "You'll have serious eyes on the car, Ms. Whitaker. If the story reads as clean as the paint, you're in great shape." "The story is clean," I said, even as I felt the knot in my chest tighten. Stories are never just what happened. They're also what people decide to tell. Donna, Monica's mother, called me that afternoon. We hadn't spoken much beyond pleasantries at parties when Monica was still orbiting Adrian. Her voice held an apology before the words did. "Lena, I'm sorry. I told Monica to stop. She doesn't hear me when money is involved." "She told you about the lawyer?" I asked. "She told me she was expecting." Donna's voice thinned on that last word, like she was afraid of breaking it. I chose the kindest version of the truth. "Adrian had a vasectomy years ago, Donna. He has the documents. She knows that now." Silence hummed between us, then a soft, broken exhale. "I didn't raise her to—" She cut herself off. "I'm ashamed." "You don't owe me that," I said gently, "but thank you." "She wants what she thinks she's owed," Donna said. "She thinks years of proximity is the same as partnership." "It isn't," I said. "Partnership shows up. It doesn't itemize your dream like a debt." When we hung up, I felt both lighter and sadder. Grief doesn't just belong to the wronged. Sometimes it belongs to the ones who watched a person they loved become unrecognizable and couldn't stop it. 2 days later, the preview day arrived. Soft velvet ropes, spotless floors, the hum of serious money beneath polite conversation. The charger was staged under white light that made the orange bloom. Strangers circled with reverent hands behind their backs. One older man crouched to peer at the stampings on the block and nodded once, the way a pianist nods at a well-tuned instrument. Adrian hovered, beaming in a way that made pride look like relief. "It feels like sending someone you love on a trip," he said. "You want them to see everything, but you also want to keep their passport in your pocket." Rick kept wiping an already clean fender because nerves need somewhere to go. "Just tell me where to stand so I don't look like an extra in my own memory." For an hour, it felt almost holy. People asking the right questions, the kind that reveal whether they've ever bled knuckles over a stubborn bolt. Then the temperature in the room changed the way a front moves in, almost imperceptible. Then suddenly everyone knows. Monica arrived. She didn't walk so much as enter. Designer dress, new heels, fresh hair, a smile calibrated to look like victory caught mid-bloom. 2 men followed, one with a camera, the other with a clipboard. She swanned under the velvet rope like it was ornamental, not functional. "Lena!" she trilled. "I'm so glad we could make it. This must be Oh, it's even shinier in person. A floor attendant began moving toward us with that balanced combination of hospitality and enforcement people wear when they've had training. Monica beat him by speaking louder. To the lovely collectors gathered, she said, projecting. I'm Monica. I supported Lena in every way that matters through this 3-year restoration. Heads turned. Attention is a river. Monica has always known how to step in. The man with the clipboard started scribbling. The cameraman found his angle, and a small circle formed out of nothing. A crowd conjured by tone. A silver-haired woman in a vintage Mopar tee lifted an eyebrow. Supported her how? Monica's smile glinted. Emotional labor, household management, opportunity costs. She glanced at me, victorious. While she spent weekends here, I carried the burden. The woman in the Mopar tee chuckled, not unkind. Honey, I've been wrenching for 40 years. Emotional labor is real. It's just not a torque spec. A ripple of laughter softened the air. Monica took a step closer to the charger, fingers hovering like she might touch the paint and claim it. The floor attendant finally arrived, voice low, polite. Ma'am, we need you to stay outside the rope unless you're listed with the consignor. I am the story, Monica said. You can't tell it without me. I stepped forward before the attendant had to push. The story is documented, I said evenly. Every receipt, every photo, every hour. Also documented your Instagram posts calling this car a rust alter and telling the internet I was financially delusional. Shall I show the kind collectors? Her smile twitched but held. People change. Do they? I asked. Because 3 nights ago you called my insurance company and pretended to be my wife. A murmur. The cameraman hesitated. The clipboard man stopped writing. Monica's voice sharpened. I was making sure you weren't reckless, which, given your choices, is charitable. The only reckless thing in this room is your relationship with the truth, I said. Also, since we're trading headlines, you arrived at my shop with a lawyer to demand equitable distribution. You then invented a pregnancy to leverage sympathy. The only reason I'm not bleeding from that lie is because my partner had the foresight to make sure we wouldn't be having any accidents 5 years ago. Color rose to her cheeks. Anger or exposure or both. You think the court will care about your little folder? Judges understand the invisible work women do. Some do, I said quietly. I hope one does for you someday, for the right reasons. But you didn't do invisible work for me. You did visible sabotage, publicly, often, and with excellent spelling. That's not partnership, that's proximity with an invoice. The floor attendant, sensing the end of the performance, gestured toward the aisle. Ma'am, we're going to ask you to leave the preview area now. You're welcome to attend the auction as a member of the public. Monica opened her mouth for one more act, but Donna appeared behind her, pale and purposeful. I hadn't seen her come in. Monica, she said softly, with the authority of a person who has finally decided to be the adult in the room. Enough. Mom, Monica hissed, mortified. Enough, Donna repeated, eyes on me now. Ms. Whitaker, I'm sorry for the disruption. We're leaving. For a heartbeat, I thought Monica might refuse, might make a scene so large the night would remember only her. Then she saw something in Donna's face. Grief, maybe, or disappointment, sharpened into a boundary, and stepped back. The cameraman lowered the lens. The clipboard man closed his pad. The circle drifted apart like a tide that realized it had gone out too far. When they were gone, the air relearned how to breathe. The woman in the Mopar tee patted my arm. Well handled, she said. I like the engine stamping on that block. Clean as a whistle. You'll do fine Saturday. I smiled, but my hands shook. Not because I was afraid anymore, because the thing I had feared most, that my story would be colonized by someone louder, had not happened. The car stood where I had placed it. Still mine, still orange, still humming with the promise of a hammer falling in a room full of strangers. That night, back home, I set the folder on the table and poured tea with hands that were almost steady. Adrian sat across from me, welding burns freckling his forearms like stars you could touch. You okay? He asked. I'm tired, I said, but the right kind. The kind that means you didn't run. He nodded. 2 more sleeps. 2 more, I echoed, and looked at the photos of the car under those lights, at the way glossy paint can look like water you're about to step into. I don't know if every story has a tide. I only know that mine did, and I had learned to keep my footing. The next wave would decide the price. But the value? I had already claimed that. The morning of the auction felt like standing inside an electrical storm that hadn't decided where to strike. The air in Scottsdale was crisp, but my skin buzzed like I'd swallowed lightning. Rick was already pacing near the loading area, his nerves telegraphing through every footstep. "Crowd's packed," he muttered. "Saturday night slot, primetime broadcast. You realize you're up right after that '70 Boss Mustang, right? No pressure." Adrian handed me coffee. "No pressure," he echoed with a grin. The Charger was polished within an inch of reality, hemi-orange shimmering like it had its own pulse. Under those lights, it looked less like a car and more like vindication made of steel. Barrett Jackson's staff guided it onto the staging floor. I trailed a few steps behind, my hand brushing the fender as if steadying both of us. The hum of the crowd built in waves: spectators, collectors, photographers, live stream hosts. When the announcer read the backstory from my submission packet, barn find, 3-year restoration, factory 440 Magnum, numbers matching, I caught people leaning forward, the way people lean before applause or impact. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her. Monica. Even the name felt like a curse I'd already outlived. She wasn't alone. Of course she wasn't. A man in designer shoes hovered behind her, the kind of entourage that pretends to be legal representation until someone asks for a card. She wore red this time, the color of warning. The color that looks like courage until you realize it's just rage dressed up. I almost laughed. The audacity was textbook. Rick cursed under his breath. "She's not seriously trying again, is she?" "Probably," I said, but this time the cameras belonged to me. The auctioneer lifted the microphone. "Lot number 1427, 1969, Dodge Charger RT, documented restoration, hemi-orange, factory 440 Magnum. Let's start at 80,000. The number hit the air like the first drumbeat of a song you can't stop dancing to. Bitter's paddles rose instantly. 85, 90, 100. The rhythm built. 110, 120. I could feel my pulse sink to the cadence of the auctioneer's chant, words becoming percussion, numbers stacking like heartbeats. 140, 150, 160. Do I hear 170? I caught Adrian's hand and squeezed. His smile was half pride, half disbelief. The roar of the room climbed. 175, 180. The auctioneer's voice was fevered now. 185. Do I hear 190? Someone in the back lifted a paddle. 190. The gavel slammed. Sold! The crowd erupted, cameras flashing. My knees felt suddenly unreliable. Rick whooped, loud enough to make strangers grin. Adrian turned to me, whispering, "You did it." "No," I said softly. "We did it." When the official paperwork came through, my net after fees stood at $170,000. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just exhaled a sound that wasn't quite laughter, more like relief finally remembering how to breathe. And then my phone lit up. "Monica, you lied about the estimate." "Me, it sold higher." "Monica, I deserve half. We built that life together." "Me, we didn't build anything together. You tried to burn what I built." "Monica, I'll sue." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back just 2 words. "Good luck." She did sue. Small claims court. Maximum $10,000. The complaint read like fiction. Emotional labor, implied contract, unjust enrichment. Trevor's name was on the filing again, though rumor had it he'd begged not to be. The day of the hearing, the judge was brisk, efficient, and about 2 coffees away from boredom. He asked for receipts. I handed him the folder. 3 years of invoices, dated payments, digital photos, VIN documentation, Venmo splits, insurance records, appraisal certificates, all under my name. He flipped through them, expression unmoving. Then he turned to Monica. "Do you have evidence to support your claim?" She produced photos of us at dinner, screenshots of affectionate text, a handwritten ledger of supposed shared expenses, rounded to convenient zeros and lacking receipts. The judge's eyebrows rose. "So, Ms. Thompson, you contributed feelings," Monica stiffened, "and emotional support." He looked back at me. "Ms. Whitaker, you purchased the vehicle before the relationship began?" "Yes, Your Honor. The title predates her involvement by 6 months." He nodded once, set the file aside, and sighed. Case dismissed. Bang of the gavel. Less dramatic than movies, but infinitely more satisfying. Monica's jaw tightened. "This isn't over." "It is," I said quietly. "The car's in a museum now. You can visit it if you buy a ticket." She turned on her heel and walked out. 2 weeks later, Donna called again. Her voice was softer, heavier. She told people she was pregnant, she said. I found out she lied. Her new boyfriend, Bradley, some finance man, dumped her the minute the truth came out. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. She thought if she could win money from you, she could impress him. Donna's sigh was old and tired. You know what the saddest part is? If she'd just been kind, she might have had a share in the happiness instead of the mess. I nodded. Kindness was always the cheapest investment, and she couldn't afford it. Donna gave a small, broken laugh. You deserve better, Lena, truly. I thanked her, and when the call ended, I realized my hands were steady for the first time in months. That night, I drove to the storage unit where my next project waited, a 1970 Plymouth Cuda, stripped down to primer and potential. Adrian met me there, welding gloves slung over one shoulder. She's rough, he said. You sure you're ready to start over? I smiled. Starting over is my specialty. He handed me a catalog. Parts, color charts, restoration supplies, all neatly tabbed and labeled. Figured we could organize it by priority. I already marked the floor pans. You did? He shrugged. Well, I'm learning to weld. Someone has to keep up. For the first time in a long time, I felt what peace actually sounded like. It wasn't silence. It was the hum of a compressor, the click of metal meeting purpose, the low murmur of someone beside you who actually gets it. A month later, the museum curator sent me photos. The charger sat under soft spotlights, its plaque polished to a shine. The inscription read, 1969, Dodge Charger R-Chai. The Resurrection. Restored by Lena Whittaker. Discovered in a collapsed barn, revived piece by piece over 3 years. Proof that patience and passion can outlast mockery. I stared at the image for a long time, the reflection of my hands trembling on the screen. Every bruise, every argument, every late night, with nothing but the sound of a ratchet and the memory of someone telling me it would never run, was worth it. The caption under the museum's post said it best. Karma's got a Hemi, and it runs perfect.